Someone in the live chat yesterday was asking if I worked on Riveras. And I said, yeah, I do, though I don't get a lot of them in. They tend to be well-built, good sounding amps, a little bit complicated, but nothing to be scared of. Lo and behold, today I pick up a 100 Duo 12, and the owner says still works, but smoked last time he used it. So let's take a look and see what we can see. Well, no great mystery. There's a capacitor here which has let out all its magic smoke. It's a X1 class rated. I think it's a 0.1. Let's see. It's a 10 nanofarad. That should be easy enough to replace. It's got a solder pad here and then a solder pad here. The thing is, I don't want to just change it out until I verify whether it just failed because it was its time, or if something on the other side of it is drawing too much current. And I need to look up the schematic. It could be a failing diode, it could be a bad cap, it could be a short to ground, or just something which is drawing so much current that this cap did what it did. Let me show you a few other things I've seen in this amp that are a little bit worrisome. There are quite a few little bits of wire or metal. Can't tell if that's compressed foil, as if it used to be under the top of the chassis, the cabinet rather, or whether that's solder bits that have come loose that are drifting around inside the amp. And if one of these rests where it should not rest, I'll recreate that right now. Let's put it here across pins 3 and 4 of this tube. Should that bridge the cathode to the heaters on that tube, we will have bad things happen. And any one of these kinds of things, because there's more than one piece of this metal floating around inside, I'm about to shake it out, that could cause a temporary short just long enough to cause that cap to go, but I need to verify. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake out all the little bits of metal that are in this chassis. I'm going to later, when I look at the cabinet, make sure that the foil's not all torn up inside. The reverb tank's not attached very well on that. That'll be a separate process. I'm going to remove that damaged cap, and I can order a direct replacement. I'm going to look up the schematic and see what factors would affect that cap as far as current, diodes, other capacitors, etc., etc. So we've got a good place to start, but no real mystery so far. Well, the cap came out cleanly, and I removed some excess solder and cleaned up that area of the board, and there doesn't seem to be any board damage, so that's good. Looking at the capacitor, I'm now convinced that all those little bits of foil floating around the amp were originally parts of this capacitor. So I don't think that little bits of metal got in the amp, caused a short, and blew the cap. I think the cap blew, which is might indicate a more serious problem, or it could be one of those things, maybe the cap wasn't quite rated for enough AC voltage. I will get the schematic and find out. Well, I looked for the schematic, did not find the schematic. I could probably get one. I have access to some secret squirrel archives and such. But in looking at the circuit and measuring some things on the board, there's nothing complicated about it. Those two red wires there are the HT secondaries, and the red and white is the HT center tap. It can go, let me get my little pointer for you. It can go through some resistors. In this case, they just have jumper wires. Then it goes to a fairly standard 4 diode bridge rectifier. They all seem to measure okay. And this cap is just across the two sides of the HT. I've got it connected to my speaker and my light bulb limiter. I'm about to power it on, but first I'm going to verify it has the correct fuses, just in case someone's loaded this thing with 20 amp fuses. Let me power it on and watch my current limiter and make sure everything's copacetic. Let me check the knob settings while it's in standby. I'm just nooning all the tone controls and zeroing all the volumes and the reverb. So far, so good. Let's take it out of standby. All right, this is the noise level of the amp with everything, all the volumes off, and a pretty healthy glow out of my light bulb limiter. More than I would expect. I might have to actually measure the current here. I think we've got something drawing more current than it should, even though the amp is working. And I would, given the age of this amplifier, I would not be surprised if it's filter caps. There seems to be a relatively high noise floor. It could also be tubes. Let me plug into the effects return and see if that makes any big difference. See, we have a hum plugged into the effects return. And I had the return level at 1, the minimum. Now I turn it up. It changes halfway through. And this is with this plugged into a Strat, but the volume on the Strat's off, so we're grounding out the effects return, and there's that hum. It goes into the background if I don't have the effects return used. All right, let's see if it's anything to do with channels. No difference in sound. Tubes are slightly microphonic, not all of them. EL34 is more so. That's drawing too much current. Only pull the EL34s and see what difference the current makes. With the EL34s out of the amp, I would expect there to be almost no current flowing through my bulb. If we still have a bit of a glow after the initial surge, that points towards caps. All this is pointing towards filter caps, but it could be a bad solder joint or something. All right, power it back on in standby. Now that there's no surge to heat up the EL34s with the amp in standby, the bulb has stayed dark. We go out of standby. All right, there's no glow, which tells me it may be one or more bad EL34s, given the microphonics. Before I tell the guy he needs to recap this amp, which would be relatively expensive given the PCB design and having to take it all apart, I just happen to have a quad of EL34s here. Let me pop those in just to see. The new output tubes made no difference, sadly. And the noise level has come down overall because I changed out V4. I suspect it has some other bad preamp tubes. I'm on channel 1 right now. And then channel 2. That oscillation and the hum of the effects return and all these things are telling me this amp needs new filter caps. You hear that in the background? Let me turn it up, see if we can hear it better. It's like in a regular heartbeat. Yeah, this amp is in sore need of a recap. Probably has a lot of bad solder joints, definitely needs those clean pots. That oscillation is a sign of a failing filter stage. Now, none of the individual caps are expensive, none of them are that difficult to change out properly. The issue, as always, is getting the board out to access the other side. It does not seem to be as bad on this as it is on, say, a Mesa. So I think if I remove all the switches and knobs and nuts on the pots on the front panel, the whole front panel will lift out and up and I can access everything. So this is not a deal breaker. I will have to call the owner, let them see this video so they'll know what we found and what I've checked. But yeah, this is the sound of an amp with some major health issues. But it started off as a really high quality amp and it can be restored to that state. So we shall see where we end up with this.